Thom Hartmann here on the best of the rest of science and green news. You need to know this. Last week marked the third anniversary of the earthquake and tsunami that devastated the Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan. And recently released documents show that since then, our nuclear regulators have been playing down the risk of a similar incident happening in the United States. Emails obtained via a Freedom of Information request show that the higher-ups at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission told staff to hide information from reporters, to keep quiet about NRC scientists studying similar risks at U.S. plants, and to change the subject when media asked what a worst-case scenario in our country could look like. At the very same time, they were downplaying the risk to Americans. Experts at the agency were questioning U.S. safety standards and feverishly working to determine if the NRC needed to implement new rules for nuclear plants in the United States. According to nuclear experts, rules aren't enough to prevent a disaster like Fukushima from happening in the U.S. Kevin Camps of Beyond Nuclear pointed out that there are 23 nuclear plants in our nation that are exact replicas of the nuclear reactor at Fukushima Daiichi and 8 other reactors that are similarly designed. These plants and many others won't suddenly be safe if the NRC institutes a few new, weak regulations. Our regulators and lawmakers seem to have learned nothing from Fukushima except how to hide the risk of a similar disaster. It's time that regulators own up to the real dangers of nuclear energy, and it's time that Americans stand up and say, no nukes. U.S. homeowners want energy choices, and for once, it's not just a Republican talking point. A new poll of more than 1,400 homeowners found that people want options when it comes to how they power their homes, and they don't want utility monopolies dictating how they get their energy. In fact, 62% of those surveyed are interested in solar power for their homes, and 88% support renewable energy in general. Even 80% of the Republicans in that poll say that utility companies should not block or interfere with the homeowner's desire to make the switch to solar. However, that's exactly what some energy companies around our nation are doing. Half of the homeowners questioned are interested in backup power for their homes, but utilities are standing in the way. Lyndon Rives, CEO of Solar City, said, "It's interesting to what utilities are doing to slow down that deployment from long interconnection times to outrageous connection fees," end of quote. That's because utility companies don't want consumers switching to solar. It's no longer a partisan issue. Americans want the choice to go green, and they are demanding that utility companies don't stand in their way. 4 new man-made gases are destroying our ozone layer and intensifying the effects of climate change. According to a new report from the journal Nature Geoscience, these new gases never appeared in our atmosphere before the 1960s, and they're made up of chemicals commonly found in air conditioning, aerosol cans, and other refrigerants. In recent years, scientists have said that the hole in our ozone layer was finally stabilizing, although it may take another 6 decades for it to fully recover. The researchers in this latest study say, quote, "The identification of these 4 new gases is very worrying as they will contribute to the destruction of the ozone layer." These gases can be up to 6 times more potent than greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, and their discovery reminds us that the ozone layer is still important news. It can take decades for dangerous gases like this to break down in our atmosphere, and we must do more to control emissions. The natural gas industry wants to exploit the crisis in Ukraine. Not only is it impractical to export tons of this toxic substance around the world, it's really a bad idea for our environment. As the situation in Ukraine began to unfold, industry-friendly lawmakers in the U.S. almost immediately began calling for more natural gas drilling. But they don't accept or choose to ignore the facts. According to Michael Levi of the Council on Foreign Relations, quote, "Decisions about whom to export to and import from are made by commercial entities, not by governments," end quote. In addition, the natural gas infrastructure in that region isn't even set up to handle the surge of new gas. This idea just doesn't make sense. And multiple studies make it clear that increasing natural gas production is the exact opposite of what we should be doing to fight climate change. Natural gas is mostly methane, which is way more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And there's already a ton of it leaking into our environment. More fracking won't help us, and it won't help the people of Ukraine. That's a gas industry talking point, and we have to make sure that our lawmakers don't buy it. And finally, over the weekend, thousands of people came out to say no to fracking in California. The rally was organized by the group Californians Against Fracking, and it's being called the largest rally of its kind in state history. More than 80 environmental and health organizations took part in the protest, calling on Governor Jerry Brown to ban natural gas drilling in his state. In the days before the protest, environmental groups released a report linking California earthquakes to increases in natural gas drilling, and others pointed to health concerns and climate change. In addition, as that state continues to suffer from one of their worst droughts in history, many anti-fracking groups argue that limited water resources should be off-limits to the natural gas industry. From earthquakes, to health, to the environment, to drinking water, there are numerous reasons to put an end to that dangerous practice. Thousands of people came out to express their concerns, and it's time that Governor Jerry Brown and all the California lawmakers start listening. And that's the way it is for the week of March 17th, 2014. I'm Thom Hartmann on Science and Green News.